Hi. I just watched Blood recently, and I'm curious, what attracted you to the project, and ultimately, how did you get involved with it?
I mean, this was when I didn't write it. I was, given the project and just really responded to it. I mean, it sort of is the kind of stories, it's the kind of story that I like to tell, something that kind of straddles genre, but also kind of does it in a different sort of way. And I saw this as kind of like, in one level, like a more traditional sort of horror movie. You could say a movie about vampires, if that's okay. But on the other level, a movie about a single mom trying to keep her kids safe and like doing whatever she needs to do to save her child. I mean, it's heartbreaking and emotional and intense and terrifying. And that kind of combination of horror and emotion is something that I really love because it's sort of an unusual way to play it. It's not like all for the thrills. It's like it gets into the heart a little bit. And so when you tell a story about a mother and a child, I mean, it's always going to be emotional. And then you bring into the mix like the danger that she's faced with, and the choices that she has to make, especially towards the end. Like I think the ending of the movie too, to me, was really like, I remember reading it and like and in tears because I just found it like awful but beautiful in a way. Like the choice you have, like the sort of Sophie's choice that she has to sort of make towards the end. So yeah, I was just that, and the challenge of doing it. That those are the sort of things that when I read something that I say, okay, I see a way in. You know what I mean? Like I see a way I can get my headspace into this kind of story.
Yeah, totally understand. And you mentioned the kids, the relationship with the kids and the mom. Um, you know, from personal experience, I know that working with kids can sometimes be a task in itself, but with Blood, Skylar and Finlay, they were exceptional. They were kind of the glue of the film.
Mm.
Can you talk about like working with them and like your process as far as like handling kids on set, maybe?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I feel fortunate to have found them both. I mean, we have obviously in casting went out to a bunch of different kids looking for the right kid. And they just like kind of really nailed it. There was something about both of them that was both honest and real, but and vulnerable, but particularly with Finley, like something that you could see him turning into a darker character.
Yeah.
There was an aspect of him that like could be a little weird and a little off-putting, and so that combination was important, and also to believe that like you believe them as like a sister and a brother. So yeah, I've worked with kids and other things. It is a challenge. You're right. It's because kids aren't trained, and but that's what you have to embrace. Like you embrace the fact that they're just raw and they just go with their instincts. And I encourage them on the set to just forget about the script on this take. Let's just do it how you would do it, as kids, as brother and sister. And often it would work, and we get different ways to play the scene. So I enjoy it. It's a challenge for sure, but the other thing that was good was Michelle and Skeet as well. Who are obviously seasoned actors, were really good in terms of giving these kids a role, like playing their mentors in a way. And Michelle, as a mom herself, totally connected with them, particularly Skylar. She has like a couple kids, and it was good that they had that real maternal connection, because I think it helps sell the realism of it, of that family.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You talked about the casting a little bit, and I'm curious as to how close are you to the casting process? And like in the past, maybe is this something that you work really closely with, or is
Yeah, I mean, I'm deeply involved. I mean, the cast, it's all me, really. I mean, not all me, but I mean, the producers weigh in. But we hire a casting person, and they present options. And I in this movie, it's a very back and forth process. Like we had both of them, Skylar and Finley, like come in a couple times and read, just sort of see, and then it's try to get them together in a room to see how they are together. And it's also when you're putting together a family, like you got to try to think, because sometimes this was during COVID, by the way. We shot the movie right in the thick of COVID, so we couldn't get anyone together for real, literally almost until we were ready to shoot the movie. And then there were masks, so it was like hard to get that connectiveness.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we got together in more informal settings and was able to do it. But you're thinking to yourself as you're casting, like, does this feel like this? Would these people connect with each other as a family? Like, would Michelle and Finley hit it off, and then Skeet comes in? Does he feel like he could be a dad? You know, so you're kind of doing a little bit of matchmaking and trying to imagine it. You know, and in this case, I feel it worked, and but it's not always, some, you know, it doesn't have to. So it takes a little bit of skill in the casting part of it. And you know, but I also, you know, sometimes I show the auditions to I show them to my kids. Like, I showed the kids' auditions to my kids who are about the same age or were when we did it. So they would be like, "Oh yeah, that kid's good. Like, he feels like a real kid." You know, like if the kid believes that the kid is a kid and not acting, then that feels like that's the best you can do. You know.
Yeah, that's a nice little secret. You know, I'm not sure how many people I would tell that to. Uh, but you know, you mentioned COVID, and this was filmed in Canada. You know, I know a lot of people were kind of going to Texas and Florida. Was there a particular reason why it was filmed in Canada?
Financial reasons.
Yeah.
Winnipeg is very affordable. That's where we shot it. You get the Canadian thing in addition to the Manitoba thing, so it just, like, financially it made a lot of sense. I had done another movie, Fractured, there a couple of years before, so I kind of had a relationship with a lot of the crew there, so it just seemed like a logical place. We were looking for a place that had like a, you know, middle America, you know, Midwest, open fields and farmhouses, you know, and that is Winnipeg. And also, like, when we shot it, and we were right at the sort of in the throes of COVID, and I think we were, if I'm not mistaken, we were one of the first movies to actually wrap during COVID and not get shut down. A lot of films started and then ended up getting shut down for various reasons. We were able to get through it all the way without that happening, and thankfully we didn't have a huge crew, and you know, Winnipeg is pretty sparse. There's not a lot of people, and the COVID thing wasn't too bad there. You know, it wasn't like out of control in Canada, so we were sort of fortunate. And I do a lot of work in Canada. I mean, you know, the movie I'm doing now is being produced out of Toronto, and I do a lot of television in Vancouver. So I don't know, I like Canada. I like going to Canada. People are nice.
Yeah,
Um,
I can completely understand. I actually have family in Calgary, and
oh yeah,
I'm in Texas now, but it's very similar landscape. Like, it's like the Cowboys just migrated south
oh
ultimately.
yeah, right. I bet. Yeah,
Just
that's the
follow
one
the
place
oil.
I've never been to Calgary, but I've been to every other place almost, but I've never been to Calgary. I'm dying to go
Well, it looks a lot like blood. It
there.
just more moose.
Yeah,
But before we wrap, you know, anything you want to mention about the project to get the audience excited? I know this is coming out very soon, so I just wanted to kind of give you the floor.
Well, I would just say, I mean, I think, you know, to me, the thing that is most exceptional, I mean, you know, if I'm bragging about or just or plugging my own movie, would be, I think, Michelle Monaghan and her performance. She's the center, she's the anchor in the movie. She's the one who helped us get it made when she signed on and showed her level of commitment and passion for doing it. And I just find her performance in it, like, so beautiful and dark and sad and believable, and, like, you know, it's often, you don't often see movies about, well, I mean, it's, you know, when you see a movie about a single parent or a single mom and, like, her struggles, whether it's a realistic drama or something like this, which is a little bit more heightened, supernatural, whatever. I always find those stories really interesting because, you know, you don't often get that perspective as it's to see a woman suffering or making the sacrifices that she makes. So I just think her, if you like her or know of her or seen her in things like the show she did, Echoes, for Netflix, like, this would be a movie to check out because she's great in it, and and it's worth just watching to see how she pulls it off. You know.
Yeah, it was actually one of my favorite performances in the film, and I was very curious as to kind of what you thought about like where she stacked up with people that maybe you had worked with in the past. I think her performance kind of spoke for itself, though, honestly.
I mean, I've worked with different actresses and people, and she was just such a pleasure to work with as a person, as well. And just also as an artist, one of the better experiences I've had working with all of them. Frankly, it was just like fun. I mean, it was just one of those movies. Like every so often, you just do a film, and everyone just sort of gets along, and it's kind of a even during COVID, it was still just like an enjoyable experience. And I always find like the darker the subject matter and the story, the more like fun and enjoyable the movie is to make, which is odd. So I think if I ever do like a romantic comedy, it'll probably be like a miserable experience. When I have done romantic comedies early on in my career, but yeah, no, she was great, and I would work with her again in a heartbeat.
But before we go, I want to mention, the Shout Factory release of Session 9. You know,
Yeah,
growing up, working in a video store, I used to recommend it to all of my regulars.
thanks, man.
Um, it was like my go-to, like, tell me a movie I haven't seen. And more often than not, everyone came back with positive feedback. If not, they enjoyed the experience. But we won't talk about that. Um,
Oh yeah, no, thanks. I think I see it in your shelf, maybe
yeah,
behind
right there. Yeah, and that's my
the
OG release, man. I had to, like, as soon as it was available, I had to get it. I think I even rented it from the Netflix. I got it in the mail.
Cool.
But the question about it though is, re whenever they did that release, you guys recorded some new special features and things. Was it fun, like, getting back into that world?
Talking about it or just revisiting it? Yeah,
Yeah.
I yeah, because I enjoy talking about my movies. I just think it's sort of what I do. So, and then there are, as you like yourself, people who really love that movie. It's definitely like its fan base, and it's fun to just sort of talk about process of how we got it made and what things might mean, and so yeah, it's definitely, I like doing those sort of commentaries, because sometimes as you're doing them, you're almost learning things about why you made a choice even at the without having realized it, like, so and it's also good to like look back at your earlier work, and because it kind of, you can start to see through lines between what you do. Like, it's not like I consciously always choose exactly the movie I want to do next, but there's definitely connections between this movie and, say, Machinist and Session 9 and others. Like Fractured is another one that's very much in the Session 9 world. I just seem to, you find yourself going back to themes, like you have certain themes that you just sort of glom onto. And maybe when I read this script, Blood, I saw some of those themes, and that's one of the reasons I was drawn to wanting to do it.
Yeah, I could definitely see the connection between Blood and Session 9. I think that that's one of the reasons why every time your name pops up, I always kind of look forward to that tone, the Brad Anderson reveal, if you will. But
Yeah,
that's really all I got. Thank you for your time.
yeah,
Here at CineDump, we let the doers know how they're doing, and Mr. Brad Anderson, you are doing just fine. I will catch you on the next one. Thank you so much, sir.
great talking to you.
Of
Thank you.
course.
All right, cheers.